Thank you for the opportunity. I wish the younger generation would have been there to hear out our maritime history. But anyways, uh, it will transmit sooner or later because the efforts are going in the correct direction from the Ministry of Education. This project has only brought me here, that is the IKS Research Center, which was awarded to us last year. And whatever connects with IKS, I never say no, because if not now, then when are we going to invest in this particular endeavor to just promote different types of knowledge system? And my focus is on maritime knowledge system. So going beyond the realm of science and maths to taking you, and taking you to the oceanic world, because oceanic world also had its own engagement, and being at the heart of the Indian Ocean and peninsular arc of ours quite invites our intervention as far as our knowledge system is concerned, right? So I gave a talk to SRIVT in July regarding the seafaring and shipbuilding techniques. But since I did not want to repeat that, the same thing, somewhere obviously I'll overlap that with today's presentation. Today I'm more focused on entrepreneurial kind of culture and the capital in the Gulf of Kachchh, because to let you know that how these knowledge systems were just not embedded but hybrid and quite interactive, network based, and of course beyond the commercial realm there is cross culturality also. So we'll just see how theoretically also we can engage and how factually we can just borrow from this particular case study, because I'm giving you a case study and my 20 years of research have been on this region of Gulf of Kachchh. So it is a kind of a natural transmission of what I'm being doing to bringing it to the platform of IKS. So I'm like, this another tagline over with this title is telling you that how we have to explore the evolution of maritime trading system and economic practices also. Of course, see, here also, when we talk about commerce and trade and enterprise and risking the things at sea, it also needs scientific intervention, because without seafaring, without shipbuilding, you cannot think about crossing the ocean, right? And the second thing which again entwines here or intertwines here is all about how do we see computation, what is their knowledge, because financial matters when it comes to, and we have seen how the West Coast has been over the centuries being contributing in this arena. So the idea is that we have to kind of take a longish or longidary approach or centuries long approach to understand that where we are, in which capacity, where we have reached. Say, for example, Mumbai continues to be financial capital. So all these networks were so interconnected, right? So let's sail through this journey and, voyage rather, and try to understand that how we try to locate this region, Gulf of Kachchh, which is northwest coast of India, which is very extreme, right? Because there, after the landlocked domain or the terrain starts, where Sindh and the other regions of current day Pakistan also get connected with this particular network. So this network was not just single network, which I want to kind of explain in following slides. And also I'm trying to give you the evolution of maritime knowledge system, the development of entrepreneurial culture and the sophisticated financial operations, which were again over the period of time developed, flourished, and were quite productive and constructive in nature. So here comes for this particular talk, I kind of, I'm kind of giving away my very prime research finding, which otherwise I wouldn't have done it anywhere else, because I want to bring it out in my new book on piracy. So here, this is about, early maritime activities, indigenous maritime practices and knowledge, early evidence of trade and navigation, and also influence of external powers in this time, which is again, it is not European hegemonic company-centric powers I'm talking about Greek, Romans, Arab traders, and impact on local maritime practices and trade network. Now, the finding is amazing, because in the 6th century maritime activities itself, if you want to find out what was happening at this coast, that there were these jats. Otherwise, we know jats are like, we always connect with them in northwest frontier or northwest Haryana and that belt. But they were originally in this Indus and Kachchh region and were driven out from this region when the Hunas and the Mihiras they were the one who attacked this region, right? And after being driven out from that region, where did they go is what we have to kind of focus. And this will give you totally a new kind of element to our historical preponderousness throughout the Arabian Sea and then Indian Ocean. So look at this migration of jats to Bahrain, Gulf, and their involvement in Sasanian naval expedition, that is Persia and Nosirwan's great expedition, they contributed. In fact, what has been established today, or till today, the Arabs have been contesting that most of the seafaring and shipbuilding knowledge in hybrid form originates from their coast, but the jats were the one who were the element, not the Arabs. The biggest finding is that, and this is somewhere missing in our discourse. Fortunately, we have sources. Fortunately, we have sources to tell us what we were, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have got to know only that, okay, this kind of history also about maritime routes and its domination and the idea of maritime republic also we can conceptualize as the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean historians have been doing it. Where are we? When we talk about Indian Ocean and being the singular dominant heart of the Indian Ocean, Maldives kind of connects it and calls it the heart, whereas heart is not this tiny bit, right? The heart has to be proper heart, right? And that is in India and the Indian Ocean. So we talk about Amravati's decline, and this particular decline of Amravati went in favor of Gujarat at this moment. And the Jats were the element and not the Arabs. Think about it again and again so that you get a clear idea about that you are not talking about any ordinary time frame and the ordinary history, because UN Sangh also talks about how Saurashtra was dependent on the idea of maritime commerce and livelihood. So far, when I had published OUP publication with Professor Edward Alpers, that time the chair of Darshak Ityas Nidhi, Hasmukh Shah, contested our introduction, saying that we were not that sea-oriented. If we were not that sea or oceanic, consciousness wasn't there as much, then how come we can have UN Sangh saying that there is a dependency on maritime commerce and livelihood? Now, this itself talks about presence of Hindu communities in Persian cities and practicing their religion freely. Now, this kind of cosmopolitan approach and the interfaith dialogue also has to come from syncretic tradition which Gujarat have been following since centuries, right? So, when we talk about this particular period, Jats and maritime influence in their role, you have to understand. Why I was talking about the Jats? Now this particular slide gives you the answer. And it talks about the Jat influence in the maritime raids against the Gujarat and Konkan coast. And because see, they were thrown out. Now they want to come back. But not simply come back, but with the idea of political domination, political claim, and geopolitical idea. Now, these are the times which we think that, oh, those waters were very calm and quiet waters, serene, nothing great, only good cultural, commercial engagement. Come on. Violence is constant as far as human history is concerned. Peace is negotiable. So when we talk about Arabs' control over sea raids originating from Jat-settled Persian Gulf, not from Arabia directly, it contrasts with the Mediterranean Arabs who lacked maritime prowess because they were so much aided by the Jat element. The Arabs could come over to the Arabian Sea. And the name itself, otherwise the name was Sindhu Sagar, by the way. For our own knowledge, Sindhu Sagar turned out to be Arabian Sea. And this element comes from the Jats' contribution. And these Jats, otherwise in the Mediterranean world, were not having any presence. So this is again a theory which has to be relooked, rethought, and reinvestigated. So we go over to the migration to Java, Cambodia, and significant sea migration from Gujarat to Southeast Asia. Also, I'll show you one image that will tell you that how there is this historical fiction and novel written on this particular adventure in the time which I'm talking about, 7th and 8th centuries, which has not been documented, by the way. And it gives you a very, a kind of incomplete picture or gap in history. And silence is in history. And this is where we become very landlocked. We are not oceanic, by the way, in our historical documentation, right? We have been so land-centric that we are not looking at how these Arab, Persians, and the Gujarat coast was part of this Canton trading world, and Jat involvements as pilots and pirates. Now these are the stories which needs to come from our pages. And then we go to the idea of how they are developing this science, which today, entire day I was hearing about, that what kind of innovations they are bringing about in their scientific approach towards navigational and covering of nautical miles as far as navigational technology was concerned in this region, and development of the Machi Yantra, or a divine fish machine by local Brahmins for navigation. This is coming from the idea of hybrid form of knowledge. Now this interaction has to be noted, right? That this is not just the exchange of commerce, but here the technology transfer is happening. And how are we developing our own compass and our own other kind of seafaring techniques, which is giving us the mobility towards the oceanic world. And that turns out to be transoceanic eventually. So emerging seafaring communities were Kirks, Maids, Makran, Sinkos. All of these communities are not at all counted upon. Now as much as others who would read maritime would know about Bhadalas and Kharwas, that also those who know about maritime. None of the maritime seafaring communities have been celebrated in history. I mean, the question remains question, why? Why are we so sea-blinded that we are not looking at their contribution in giving us the prowess which we enjoyed once upon a time? So in this particular slide, where I took you to the ancient times, and the overview tells you the story that 6th century onwards till 8th century, influence of Indian subcontinent has to be accounted, indigenous communities to be counted, and also complex interplay between external powers and local tradition. Complex. This is a complex word. Complexity, we are just simplifying in our narrative by not even documenting or not even looking at it. So the idea is that where it takes, that particular time, where it is reaching to, where it is culminating into. It is taking us to entrepreneurial culture. The evolution of entrepreneurial culture in the Gulf of Kachch was driven by the growth of mercantile communities. And this is the overview of my paper, where I am talking about global trading networks stemming out of that particular seafaring, shipbuilding, and of course maritime oceanic trading networks. That dense, complex, and trans-regional networks are coming up. This is the historicity of my findings as far as Gujarati records are concerned. And these are not, see, what happens is that our regional languages, other than Sanskrit, of course, very important, but the Devanagari transcription of it in different forms has to be read, because it talks about Kachch, Saurashtra, Gujarat, Hindustan. Now, Hindustan, the term wouldn't come in Gujarati just like that, right? And the idea is that what Gunvantrai Acharya says, that if you do not really record 1,000 years of our history with sea, then you are actually not talking about history. He is talking about his times, that is 1950s and 60s, when he voraciously wrote 30 sea-centric novels. In fact, 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, he just kept on writing. He died, when he died, that day he completed one of his novels. This much dedication he was having towards that particular aspects. Imagine if he was the one, he wouldn't have written, we wouldn't have known these pages at all. So this is where, insightfully, those who ignore the seal, please read it carefully so that you get an idea what I'm trying to say and emphasize. Those who ignore the sea will never completely understand our region or country's history, he cautions. And then Acharya rightly understood the sea on the long literal for 1,000 years of history by outsiders to conquer and dominate one port after another, from Kathiawar to Somnath to Diu to Mandvi. So you can make out that why was that exercise, continuous exercise of dominating the West Coast. That means West Coast had so much to offer, right? And then we will understand Dungarshi Dharamsi Sampat also, his work also. And look at this particular, out of this entire slide, forget about everything. What is he talking about? A narrow strip of lake, which is Indian lake, not the British lake. And we happily gave away to the Eurocentric version of British lake. Why? You all are getting my point. What? Because the rising maritime ventures of seafarers, of merchants, pirates, and Gulf of Kachch prompted Acharya to construct the idea of Indian lake. And on the contrary, when the British or the European authors are talking and identifying as a British paramountcy or Pax Britannica, then they are just giving away that idea to British lake. When was it? The idea is, when was it? Were British so significant by that time? No. Come on, they are using the networks and the nodes of capitalism which we had established. Okay, so the idea is that Dwarka, I am not trying to romanticize, by the way, the idea of Indianness and all that. Not even nationalist point of view. This is purely historic point of view. I'm just a historian, and in none other capacity I'm talking about. So it is not coming up like, eulogical or glorification of our history. It is not glorification. It is not even bias. It is not even prejudiced. Because the idea is that you have to have neutral and objectified history where we talk about significant ports and merchant enclaves. Because this history needs your attention. Look at the networks. Now, where we sign it, Mandvi, Jamnagar, Bhavnagar, Porbandar, Persian Gulf, Red Sea, East Africa, and archipelagic island of the Indian Ocean in the Southeast Asia. Halar stretch around Jamnagar, and then all these communities who were involved. And look at the reach. It is so wide and so webby that you can't even, like, where it stems out. So what I could do is this. Surat was, of course, Bandar-e Mubarak. And it was the one who took over in the 16th century and the 17th century, the prominence. So concurrently, traders from Kachchh, Sindh were trying to secure firmer position on the Arabian Gulf, Bombay, Calicut, Cochin, Calcutta, and then Marwar, Sindh, Jaisalmer, Pali, landlocked also. So it is like, three ways we see. One is your oceanic network, second is your coastal network, the third is your hinterland network, and if you want to go further, then inland networks and mainland and overland networks. This is the way history is to be seen, because geographic constructs are missing in our understanding. Because we are not looking at how the land to land, the diverse networks are shaping up and stemming out. So the overwhelming bulk of trade of orbiting around maritime zone from Bombay to Gulf of Kachchh. This is the huge collaboration. See, this is what I could come out, oceanic and transoceanic, minor, inland, hinterland, which I just spoke, coastal circuits, intercoastal networks major across the sea. So it's this. It's this. And beyond that, of course, we have this entire idea of the ports which I can. Actually, Guntur Acharya talks about 84 ports. 84 ports of the Indian Ocean, major, minor, whatever you say, or however you identify active, inactive. But these were the networks which connected with the Gulf of Kachchh. So I have given different directions to this based upon what was exchanged, which commodities were exchanged, how capital flow was directed and germinated and evolved. So, So this particular, the Arabian Sea, Indian Peninsular Arc and Eastern Waters is what this particular map is showing. And commodity in circulation. This is where the idea of capital comes. How are we so resourceful? Do you think only West Coast had everything? No. West Coast was resourceful and it was going over to all the direction to pack whatever from mundane to high value commodities, whatever they could load in their or on their ship, they would load it, take it to sea, at sea, crossing the oceanic turbulent or perilous or boisterous waters, and taking up the idea of material culture, mobility, supply, trans-regionality, everything. This is really the idea of enterprise. My title, where I consciously added up the word enterprise, right? I mean, you can think about the times which I am talking about where you have industriousness of artisans. Today, we all were deliberating on the idea of metallurgy and all that, right? So actually, artisans were the contributor also. They were silent players because in the engagement of seafarers and traders, you don't talk about artisans who are supplying all these commodities which were exotic in nature. Say, for example, even textile weavers. We don't talk about them, but they are also not aware about where their products are going. But it is in circulation. So the idea is of circularity. And then circularity, participants are known, unknown, player, non-player, whatever you call them. And then this is the idea, one of the chief players in trans-regionality, exchange of religious thoughts, pilgrimage, culture, exchange, and seafaring. All this is coming through this. How trans-regional networks were formed. It's just not pilgrimage. It is beyond that. It is not just culture. It is beyond that. It is just not commerce. It is beyond that. So whatever beyond you would like to explore, this world offers you. This is the world which will give you the idea of key islands and then critical network dynamics and this Eastern Indian Ocean. Now, Eastern Indian Ocean was not that easy. Here comes the idea of maritime terminologies, lexicon exchange, and how vocabulary is developing. Maritime vocabulary, which I was talking to Rajesh sir. Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just ending. So the Indian Ocean has a special place in the Indian maritime history, and this is the one I wanted to show you. In Eastern Indian Ocean. Can you just make out from this particular, I will just read it out for you if you don't read Gujarati. Javard Bhavard. Can you make out what is the meaning of Javard? This is connected with, of course, networks which I was talking about. This is connected with Eastern Indian Ocean for more hints. And this is connected with Southeast Asia for more hints. Come on, we are very close. Give me the Java, towards Java, Indonesia, right? That is Eastern Java we talk about. Recently I was in Indonesia and I was looking at Eastern Java, like how this comes in Gujarati novel and trying to understand the complexity. The complexity is that this Diwan who had regularized the trade, he was known as Jawar Shah. Jawar Shah, in the sense the one who is dealing in the trade with Java, and the entire novel is named after Jawar Bhavard. Bhavard is Bhavnagar, by the way. So towards Java, coming back to Bhavnagar. This is how. So Jawar Shah Diwan of Chawda ruler and his trading fraternity had monopolized this scheme called Gotri trade. Now, I know if I'd say Gotri, you won't understand. But if I say Gotra, you understand, right? Gotra means the commodity. Here, why Gotri term is used, and this is very astrological and astronomical also. So Gotra word is used to identify commodities of the same group. Commodities belonging to the same group. Because people belonging to same Gotra. Right? Similarly, how commodification has also astrological, astronomical intervention. So here we talk about Gotri Vyapar and Varmal. What is Varmal? If I say Varmal, you won't understand. Even I was juggling when I read Varmal. But if I say Vima, so then you will understand that, oh, it is maritime insurance system. Yeah, in Gujarati we call it Vimo utaryo ke nahi. So, like, have you got your insurance or not? And this comes from the maritime compulsion. There was a compulsion to the idea that if you are taking your ship at sea, you have to have Varmal, you have to have insurance. If you do not have insurance, you can't go ahead with it. Now, these are the terminologies telling you what is my maritime knowledge system I'm talking about. And then it gave way to business culture, astrological speculation, market prices, panchang, lunar calendar, everything. Till date, Mumbai Samachar, if you pick up, it's a local Gujarati newspaper, very popular in Gujarat and also in Mumbai. Every day, that astrologer speculates that what is the market for, say for example, cotton, or silver, or for gold, every day, by default. This is what I was telling you, that we go beyond astrology, right? I mean, astrological intervention in your life, it is about commerce also. So, trans-regional trade networks between Cambay, Gujarat, Java, and different times, different rulers tried to secure it because there was a threat of piracy, pirates. Because this, you can imagine the prosperous nature of trade. It must be carrying huge booties, huge species. That's why it was so secured. Convoy system came into existence. So we have not borrowed from the British or the Dutch or the Portuguese. Convoy system we also originated with. Yeah, so the forming of convoys endorsed the notion of reciprocity for coastal economies. Polity thrived on the seaway commercial traffic. Yeah, so these are the historical contexts. These are the people about whom I was talking about. This is one of those port towns which contributed hugely, Mundra. You know, by Adani port, by the way now. But those days it was Mundra port. And these are the players on whom I focus. Players of trans-regionality. He's a Bhatia trader, Kachchh Bhatia trader, and you can see how cosmopolitan the shop looks like, you know, when you have Arab, but not Arab, actually African Arab sitting in his shop, right? So this is what is the idea, that how, where we were. And these are he was the dominant
We can
tycoon
conclude now,
of
madam.
Zanzibar. And Jairam Shivji, he was the one, he was from whom the Sultan of Muscat and Zanzibar would borrow money. This is where our economic prowess is. And then there is this commodity power play. I just quickly rush through the remaining slides, so give you
Madam,
an
we
idea.
can conclude now in
So that's
1
fine.
minute time.
Yes. So this is cotton. Again, talking about Bombay Cotton Merchant, East India Company, micro working systems. And this is where I wanted to actually focus, bankless bank and models of invisible networks, how our hundi system was so professional and so important that we were here. And competing with American merchants in Zanzibar. And American merchants sought our partnership. That is what is my idea. We were having the upper hand, not they. They wanted the partnership. And the fellow I showed you, he was rejecting as many times he could. But finally he gave way. So this is where the idea comes. System, I hope, these are the records. Giving you the idea that we knew documentation. We knew how to have ledger records. Our sophisticated trading accountancy system, right? And these are the records. I with great difficulty started reading it, rereading, because as many times you read it, there is no comma, no full stop, so it confuses you where you are. So these are the hundi entries, and these are the silent players I was talking about. So yeah, we are everywhere. This is related to ivory, high value commodity. Next time if SRIVT again calls me, I offer this lecture. So, so the idea is that how we go ahead with the idea of high value commodity and capital creation, monastery as sarkar, and these are the, again, invisible players, invisible, never known, never to be seen, but played a predominant role. This is hybrid knowledge I was talking about. You can see script in dual way written, or you can say bilingual, Gujarati and Arabic. Yeah, and the Arabs also have it. This is what is Gujarati, and from this Arabs borrowed it. This is Arab and Arabic. Okay, so yeah, conclusion
Thank you,
takes
madam,
you
very
this
much.
way. This is the conclusion. I don't have time
Thank
to
you.
read out also conclusion, but I hope you understood what is the conclusion.
No, it's
So thank
very
you so much.
interesting, madam. I think we have got a separate session for the question answer.
Thank you, Dr. Chhaya Goswami Garu, for such a valuable speech. That was really motivating. I would like to ask Session Chair Dr. Vikas Kumar Saxena Garu to present memento, shawl, and certificate to our speaker.